Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I expected, as soon as the summer months come up, we always expect the numbers to go down a little bit, but I am happy to report that our online viewing has gone very well with our YouTube channel. So if you do miss a meeting, or if you want to go back because you thought you heard something and you don't know if you heard something, all of our press conferences, all of our meetings, they've all been taped and recorded and are all available online in their entirety. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order on behalf of our board, who is a little sparse today as well, unless one of the other board members want to do it. I apologize for not getting the minutes out to you ahead of time, but they should be on the back of your agendas. And really with these, what we do is we usually just ask if there's any additions, corrections, or questions. For those, they are posted onto our website. For all of our meetings, if this is the first time you've been to one of our meetings, all of the handouts, all the agendas, the minutes, our announcements, all of it gets loaded into our Google Calendar, so you can draw them down at a later date. So, any additions or corrections to the minutes? None?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Oh, and we don't even need motions. They're more for information only, but thank you, my two of my 4 board members here today, 5 board members here today. Pat, treasurer's report?
I'm happy to report that our balance as of April 30th, which is the last statement date that we have in our account, we have a balance of $11,048.97. So doing well in that regard, and thank you to everyone for the support for the AOD partnership.
And we also have a online fund with the Community Foundation, and that amount will be reflected in the minutes after the meeting because we have to pull it up. So we do not have that right now. As far as stat and volunteer opportunities, before I get into some of the bulleted options, we haven't had a chance to update our stat sheet, but when we do, it again will be posted onto our website. And as far as a few things that are coming up through volunteer opportunities, they have been scrolling in the announcements, but I'll just kind of tick them off one at a time. Aaron, would you like to update on Western Marathon County?
Yeah, Western Marathon County is our pretty much new coalition of all the municipalities in Western Marathon County. We have our official logo, which you can see on the screen there. We had a student from Stratford High School design the logo, so we're happy about that. But we're just continuing moving forward. Our next meeting is going to be out there in Stratford on Wednesday the 18th.
That was fast. It was fast. Do you want to update on the impaired driving?
We don't really have yes. The City of Wausau, Village of Cronenwetter, and Village of Rothschild have formed essentially a task force of law enforcement to do high visibility enforcement efforts throughout the summer. And I have the dates on my calendar, but it's almost every weekend they're doing high visibility enforcement in different areas of the metro area for drunk driving, seatbelt usage, impaired driving, all that good stuff. So I know there's been a little bit of media coverage already, but they're really going to be doing a lot of those high visibility efforts throughout the summer. So that's one thing that we're going to hopefully be able to update you all on as far as what they're seeing for arrests and all that too.
One of the things that we're really excited to be able to share with everybody is on our YouTube channel. It's not actually hyperlinked. On our YouTube channel, there is, as soon as I pull it up, I can't do 2 things at once. Sorry. Destiny and I worked with some of our local students at Idea Charter School and developed 2 different PSAs. And one of the questions that is on our sign-in sheet is, we're going to be looking for local sponsors. And we're going to be looking for sponsors to not only run these PSAs, but also for an event that Maureen's going to talk about and some of our recovery efforts that Maureen's going to talk about in a minute. But I just wanted to show you kind of the creativity of this. We have to thank the Wausau Public Access for helping us put these together. But I figured I'd show you.
Pot, grass, hash, weed, reefer, Mary Jane, dope, the matter what it's called, it can still hurt us.
Join us in the conversation. Visit takebackyou.org.
So that's one. Then, and they do both say the same thing with some different kids, so then we can mix it up.
Kush,
Hot.
grass, hash, weed,
Reefer. Mary Jane.
no matter what it's called, it can still hurt you.
Join us in the conversation. Visit takebackyou.org.
So I thought the kids did really good. You know, it was their idea. They came up with this. They're like, we want to do something about pot. You know, everybody thinks that it's safe. And, you know, the last AOD partnership meeting, we actually focused on that topic. So the kids really did a good job with that. You have anything to add?
It was a lot of fun to work with them. They really did plan everything and they wrote it out, and they did a really good job of getting the students that weren't involved with the group there involved in the video, and it was fun. They're really excited about it, and I know they're excited about seeing it hopefully put on spots. So.
Okay, so the only other stat update is for our pushback against drug abuse, our heroin and opiate stat. We're going to be scheduling some meetings. I had been out of the office, so we haven't had a chance to schedule anything. We're going to be scheduling some meetings coming up here to look at how we can expand our pushback outreach beyond the city of Wausau, where we've done 5 or 6 different neighborhoods now. One of the questions, again, that's on the sign-in sheet is, would you be available, if your schedule permits, obviously, to help us go out for 2 hours and go door to door and give some materials out related to the pushback initiative. We're looking at expanding into the city of Schofield, village of Weston, Corona-Wetter, Rothschild, starting with the municipalities in the metro area, but we really need population dense areas. So if you live in, you know, one of the smaller communities in rural Western Marathon County, or Mosinee, or what have you, if you can think of, you know, being able to find some volunteers, whether it's, you know, in your church or where you work, you know, if you have a group of students that you work with, you know, we're going to be looking for volunteers to help with that. And again, it's about a 2 to 3 hour commitment. We're not asking for a ton of time, but if you're interested, there's check boxes on the sign-in, says yes, no, or maybe. Again, obviously if schedule permits, that's what we're asking. Okay, do you want to talk about recovery?
Sure. September 9th is going to be the date of our Faces of Recovery luncheon. It'll be held at the Jefferson Inn. And we are in the process of putting the program together, which this year we are planning to videotape the stories of the participating folks in recovery and do it in kind of an artistic and creative way, in addition to having them actually physically at the luncheon. And also use those videos as part of website and education. And again, the focus is to diminish the stigma associated with addiction and also create an awareness of the resources available to help folks who struggle with it. So Melissa keeps referring to this sign-up sheet that I've very strategically held here until I spoke, and then I'll send it around. But as she said, there's a box to check if you're interested in helping with the pushback campaign. And then the final column is a box for sponsorship ideas. If you know of a business or an organization or an individual who might be interested in sponsoring either the YouTube promotion or some of the costs to offset the event of the recovery lunch, you can note that in this column, who that group is, and we will follow up with them. If you're thinking specifically of the luncheon or specifically of the YouTube, put that in the notes so we kind of know what your thoughts are if you know they have a passion in one specific direction. There really isn't sometimes when you think of sponsorships, you think, is it going to cost a lot? We have a wide variety of opportunities. The cost of the luncheon is $20, and we're hoping that we will be able to invite people who maybe don't have the resources to pay for the luncheon, but it would be very valuable for them to attend. So we'll have a pool of money set aside to kind of sponsor their lunch. So the consideration could be as little as $20. So if you know of someone who's either currently dealing with someone in an addictive behavior or has a special story or sensitivity to it, or if your business is looking to match funds or promote that in that environment, to note that on the sheet when you sign in, that would be great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm just going to cover a couple different of the partner updates, and then we'll open it up for anybody else that would like to share. A couple things that are, we just have some examples of what's going around. The Northwoods Coalition is kind of a coalition of coalitions on a regional level that's managed and kind of facilitated through Marshfield Clinic Center for Community Outreach. And every year they have a coalition. They have an annual meeting where they offer some trainings. They offer educational opportunities on all things substance abuse related. So if this is a passion of yours, they actually have scholarships available. And what's going around right now is a registration packet. I only printed out a couple packets, so if you're not really interested in going, or if you want to wait, in last week's update, it was attached to last week's update. So if you want to go back to that, you can also view last week's update always on our website here. You can go back and find it that way. Oh, John has not updated it yet, but he will. Because I will tell him he has to. But the update is on there, and it's also available through our Facebook page. Another thing to point out is over the last few years, there's been a Wisconsin Alcohol Policy Conference, and this is great for anybody that's interested in alcohol policy on a state, municipal, federal level. And you know, it's really intentional for our local policymakers, our local city attorneys, and so on. But you know, this is another thing. It's online registration. There's a save the date that's going around, and all these will be posted onto our website. Into our calendar for those dates. So you'll be able to get this information. If it's not up yet, it will be up by the end of the day tomorrow. And the last thing that I wanted to point out on the table is, again, as part of our update last week, we're very excited that Peaceful Solutions Counseling has started a parent support group that meets on a, I want to say, weekly basis. And it's open to whoever, when people need it, when they don't need it, you know, for people to get that support that they need when they're trying to help their loved ones through addiction. And that's really all part of our Take Back. You know, it's really part of what we want to do with our Take Back youth. So we're very supportive of what they're doing there, and just wanted to point that out because that's a new development. Any other partner updates? Steve?
On behalf of AmeriCorps, they're making funding confirmations in the very near future, like things being confirmed by, I think, the 19th of June. But we've got a pretty good idea of what's going on already in our program, NCCAP AmeriCorps team, Greater Wausau area, working with education. Marshfield Clinic's AmeriCorps program, which also serves this community, their focus is healthy futures, I think. And right, Healthy Futures. And then the Wisconsin Primary Healthcare Coalition, or Street Clinic one, whose focus is health, should all be getting funding confirmations for the 14-15 year in the very near future. What that means is if you know people that, especially, you know, young, energetic, outgoing people, but also energetic seniors and others that are looking for a term as an AmeriCorps member, or perhaps even a host site, contact your favorite AmeriCorps person, whoever that may be. But we're looking good, we're moving forward, we're having great impact in Wisconsin and throughout the nation. I believe in it. If you want to learn more, talk to me.
Yes, Carol.
Did you, or have you decided, would you be coming to the Vermont Running Sale?
I was going to ask you if you could update on what you were thinking.
What we do is the town of Vermont where I live, folks, we have a huge rummage sale, and I have offered to give you my property if you would like to hand out any of your information. We have about over 2,000 people that travel and come to the Vermont Rummage Sale. It's done by the Vermont State Park. We have up to 70, possibly 80 homes. And I've also contacted, and I don't know if you've heard, I got involved with the Citizens Police Academy and offered if they wanted to come and sell the canine dogs at my house for $15, that the Sheriff's Department would come on my property, sell their dogs, but they would have their own police department. So I am reaching out if you would like to come and hand out your information. My house is at 1604 Lily Lane in the town of Vermont. We have rummage sales start on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday we have early bird sales, so we have a lot of people that will be coming far and wide, past Green Bay, past Marshall, I mean, and they go out all over. So I am extending you my home. We have food. There's food that you walk through multiple homes. We actually have a trailer this year coming. A cousin of mine comes and sells food and whatever have you. So I'm extending that out to you guys. I have not heard if the canines are the stuffed animals. I should have brought you the puppies. The puppies are $15. And what it does is the $15 that they take and raise is to go towards the canine food and whatever have you. We did meet one of the dogs at the Citizens Academy, and they are like $35,000. So this would be a great way to also help with the sheriff's department sell the canine puppies, but they would have their own people come in and they would sell their puppies. And you're more than welcome to come.
Repeat the date.
The date is going to be the 12th, 13th, and 14th.
Yep. So we're very happy that Carol reached out to us to offer that opportunity. So we're going to make some of the information available, like the pushback materials and so on. So if anybody is available, that if you could donate an hour or two of your time to help man that table, talk to people that are coming and going. It is a crazy time out there as far as the sales goes. There's so many people. So if anybody is available, we really appreciate your help with that. So if you want to get in contact with me or with Aaron, we can get you the information on how to get in contact with Carol too. Any other updates? Since our last meeting, I don't want to put anybody from North Central on the spot here, but since our last meeting, North Central Healthcare has closed down their their intensive outpatient, so their day treatment program. So that leaves us with, there's two options in the community. One is Attic, which is a correctional treatment facility. So if you're on probation and parole, that's how you get into that day treatment program, which is between 3 and 4 hours of groups and individual therapy, and it really offers a lot of support for those that are working through addictions. And then the other is through Wassa Health Services, who has an afternoon day treatment program, but again, you have to be part of their services. So right now, if you're a person that is not involved in the criminal justice system or going through Wassa Health Services, there is no day treatment options. From what I've heard, that North Central is going to be putting all their efforts into looking at establishing a residential treatment program, which is typically 28 days, up to 28 days. It's a voluntary program, but you actually live in a situation that is very supportive of recovery. You work through your treatment groups and individual therapy. It is something that is of great need in our community. So stay tuned with that, and as we get some more updates, and if there's anything that I missed, feel free to correct me. Okay? Am I good? And then what's something that's leading up, and why I've left this on the screen, our August meeting, as you may know, September is National Recovery Month, and Maureen already talked about our Faces of Recovery Luncheon and some of the things that we're going to be doing with that. But leading up to that, our next meeting for the AOD Partnership, we're going to be bringing in someone from Step Industries, which is a business over in the Fox Valley. It's completely a sober work site. It employs people that are in recovery. It's very supportive of that. Maureen's been a big part of that. Someone from that company is going to be coming here to talk about it, as well as we're going to be reaching out to some of our sober living facilities, not only locally, but on a statewide level, to have them come in and kind of tell us what the options are, because there's a great need for these type of situations in our community. So that's my plug for the next AOD meeting as well. So with that, if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and I'm not for sure who's starting. Destiny. Destiny Cohen's going to be talking to us today about our topic, and Dot Kelman from the Central Wisconsin Tobacco Free Coalition is going to be adding some things to it as well. Thank you.
All right, so I think we'll just save questions until the end, because I think between Dot and I, we should be able to answer most of them by the end of the presentation. So we'll just get started here. First, to give some context about if I say, well, other tobacco products do the same thing, and kind of the same things are going on. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about other tobacco products. So these include things, chewing and spit tobacco, snus, which is a pouch-like chewing tobacco. So the chewing tobacco is in a pouch and it goes in between the cheek and the gum. It's a little bit more discreet than regular loose chewing tobacco or spit tobacco. Dissolvable products, so there are some dissolvable products out there, and I think I can pass this board around for you over there so that everybody can see it, or if Melissa wants to just walk around. So the dissolvables come in different, you can just take the big one and show them. So there are things that look like little tobacco strips that are placed in the mouth and they dissolve. There's also things called orbs that look like little Tic Tacs and they also dissolve. And so that is a newer item that is on the market. And then there are cigars and cigarillos. So the other tobacco products include all of these things, and these products are not a safer alternative to smoking. That's one of the questions we will get. And they can cause cancer, heart disease, and other health issues just like cigarettes. There are some issues with these products, including appealing packaging. They're candy flavored and they're cheaper than cigarettes. So the appealing packaging, some of these pictures are from our area because we recently did an environmental scan. And you can see how, especially on that board too, you can see how some of the products they look a lot like candy. They're packaged like candy, they're flavored like candy. So on here we have the Laffy Taffy next to the grape cigarillos. We also have a lip gloss next to a little cigar that's strawberry flavored. And these things are flavored and packaged like candy because tobacco companies know that kids like sweet flavors. They like sweet things. So they flavor them like that to attract youth and to attract a younger audience. They know it's their next big business. Also, you know, where they're placed in a store has a huge effect on who they're marketed to. So a lot of times you'll see these power displays in stores. This is one of them right on the counter at the point of purchase, advertising these flavored cigars. And you can also sometimes see them a lot of times on the actual floor next to candy displays to kind of attract them. You know, they're an adult habit and they're an adult product. So a lot of younger kids, when they want to feel cool or be like an adult, they look to these like, oh, you know, they look to them as a positive thing. The candy flavors I talked about a little bit. You know, they come in all sorts of flavors like chocolate, grape, strawberry. And in 2009, the FDA implemented a law that regulated flavored cigarettes, but the law doesn't currently include other tobacco products, so that is why they can be flavored like sweet flavors like grape and strawberry, because cigarettes cannot be flavored like this. So you have your menthol, you have your regular tobacco, but they cannot have these flavors in them. But these other tobacco products, because of the law, they're misplaced into this category, other tobacco products that are not covered by that same law. And they're cheaper. There's a tax loophole. So if you look at this picture, you can see 20 cigarettes on this side and then 20 little cigars. And then in the middle, they basically look the same. The only thing that's a little bit different is the papering. The paper on the little cigars is brown. So these little cigars are classified as an other tobacco product, which the tax on these products are different. So every pack of cigarettes is taxed around $2.50 a pack in the state of Wisconsin, and then the other tobacco products approximately 75 cents. So they're much cheaper. So we're going to get started with the e-cigarettes. I wanted to go over the other tobacco products just because some of the things that are happening with the e-cigarettes happened with these other products, and so I might reference them. So what are e-cigarettes? And I'll go over the definition here. This is the FDA definition. Electronic cigarettes, are also known as e-cigarettes, are battery-operated products designed to deliver nicotine, flavor, and other chemicals. They turn chemicals, including a highly addictive nicotine, into an aerosol that is inhaled by the user. So the aerosol is often what people call vapor. And we use the term aerosol because there are other things in the nicotine juice, which is the liquid that goes inside of an e-cigarette, that we can't just term it vapor because there are other things in it. These products, I'm going to kind of explain a little bit how they work. So, and I'll pass this around. This is a reusable, refillable product. This bottom part right here is a battery, and then there's an atomizer, and this is where the nicotine juice would go. And then there's a mouthpiece, so you would puff out of this end. The battery powers the device. The atomizer is powered by the battery, and the atomizer turns the liquid into a vapor that is inhaled by the user. This is the nicotine juice right here, and I'm going to pass this around. It is closed. Please do not open it. And this bottle right here is 15 milliliters. And it's a 18 milligram dose of nicotine, so you can get different levels, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. But this bottle is about $9.99, and then this device is about $22. And so it's fairly cheap. This bottle right here that is $9.99 is equivalent to 15 packs of cigarettes. So if you think about that, it's a lot cheaper. I'm going to pass them around just so you can look at them, because I am so far away from some of you. Then we also have disposable devices as well. And these are what, a lot of the teens and younger people are calling hookah pens, e-pens. They're not really calling them e-cigarettes. And if you look at it, it doesn't really look like an e-cigarette. So it's disposable. There's about 800 puffs in here. And you can see there's a little gem at the bottom, and then you would inhale out of the top part right here. I'm going to pass it around. Please do not try them. We don't give samples. And then I also have this mango flavored one. I left it in the packaging just so you could kind of look at the packaging. But I'll pass them around. You can take a look. And so when we think of e-cigarettes, many of you might think of something that looks like a traditional cigarette. I know what I'm passing around doesn't, and that's kind of the main point is to point out that these things are changing. They often look like other devices. So these are some novelty e-cigarettes that are out there and on the market, especially these big ones. They have the big tanks. A lot more of that nicotine juice can go inside of there. But the most common is the one that I'm passing around, and it's the one in this bottom corner right here. And this is, if you see people using e-cigarettes, that's generally what they're using now, and it's the most common one that's out there. The market has exploded, and there are many products that no longer look like the e-cigarettes. And the main thing to point out about that is it's re-normalizing the act of smoking. And a lot of people don't identify as smoking when they're using these products because they don't look like cigarettes. So providers out there, if they were to ask somebody, do you smoke, they most likely would say no, because they don't consider this smoking, because they think it's a healthier alternative to a cigarette. And it also includes things like these products. So there are some novelty items out there, and I know we have these in our area as well, but these are kind of the disposable ones, the most common one right here. Then we also have things like cigars and the pipes, so people can kind of pretty much get whatever they would like. These devices can be bought at gas stations. I don't know if you're out at a gas station, I encourage you to look. There's a lot of these products, on the counter. They have them behind the counter sometimes. When we did an environmental scan recently, it was really interesting to see how much these products had infiltrated the market here. And I think they're just becoming very popular. And other tobacco products, used to be kind of on the forefront of the counter, but these products really have been put there instead of the other tobacco products because they're becoming very popular. So what is in that e-juice? We're going to talk a little bit about this. These quotes are from one of the companies called V2. It's you can buy them online. But I looked to see what they said was in the juice, and I took a picture of the bottle that I'm passing around. And if you look at that, it says vegetable, glycerin, polypropylene, glycol, kosher, natural and artificial food flavoring, so things that you would find in food. And they said that it contains a tested mixture of nicotine and various food flavorings in a propylene glycol base, so things that are used in fog machines, asthma inhalers, food and toothpaste. They also said it includes other ingredients, including flavorings used in many of your favorite foods, including fruits, nuts, and bakery goods. So the way that they're talking about this juice, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what else is in there, is that it's safe and it's healthy, and there are things that are found in your food, they're natural, they're things that you're already ingesting into your body. But there are other ingredients than listed on the bottle of the e-juice, and companies manufacturing these products do not have to list all of the ingredients on here because right now they are not regulated by anybody. So recently I talked about, we did an environmental scan, and we have some vape shops in our area, and I encourage you to go and kind of see what they're about, but I'll share my experience a little bit. I was in a place and I walked in, and on the back wall there's just all these different flavors of this juice. and you know, anywhere from popcorn was a weird one that I found. Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. The one that I'm passing around is berry flavored cotton candy, sweet flavors that, if you think about when I talked about the other tobacco products, we know young kids like and they're attracted to. And when you go in there, you can try the flavors. This picture is actually displayed from the Royal brand. And they have the atomizer and the mouthpiece right next to the nicotine juice. And you can try your flavor when you're in there to make sure that you like it, and to make sure you buy something that you know you're not gonna hate. But it was just very interesting because when you walk in, you go back to one counter and it's really like a bar. They're called Vapo bars, and they have like a bar with all of the electronic devices, and you can look at them, and they have them in cases, and they'll pull them out and they'll show them to you. And I just engaged in conversation with people, and just the way that people are talking about them is very positive. It's a very exciting thing. It's kind of becoming a culture. And it was very interesting to me. But I'm going to share a story that was a news article from a different place, if I can get it to pop up here. There are also, like, there's a traditional tobacco flavor. We have it on one of our boards, but the most popular flavors that people are buying are the sweet flavors. I asked the clerk that was there, and she said, oh yeah, people buy the sweet ones more.
Click this video to learn how
So we'll just have to listen to this real quick, and then
Ross Park Hospital gave dentists some fresh start at life.
Sorry.
It's about to get tougher for minors to get their hands on alternative nicotine products. Governor John Kasich is expected to sign a bill into law this week that would prohibit the sale of e-cigarettes to minors. These mechanical devices have launched a new trend, vaping bars. While many people love them, Ashley Berry tells us that doctors worry about a new health concern.
Clouds of vapor, not smoke, paint the air in this Grove City store. It's Buckeye Vapors, a vaping bar, a new business born from electronic cigarettes. E-cigarettes began to show up in Central Ohio 5 years ago after a federal tax hike on cigarettes and a state smoking ban in restaurants.
Some people think they're picking up another vice. This one's a lot cleaner.
The first e-cigarettes looked like black or white versions of the real thing. But now, the devices, called Veritubes, come in rainbow colors and many sizes. Some even look like pipes.
It's basically the same concept. They all work on a battery, juice, and an eating element.
Joshua McBride, co-owner of Buckeye Vapors, says juice is the liquid that goes inside. It's made from propylene glycol, a preservative, vegetable glycerin, a sweetener, as well as flavors and nicotine. Users either drip the liquid into a wick, good for a half dozen puffs, or insert a refillable cartridge, good for a couple days. 18 milligrams, that's the amount in one cigarette, is standard.
We can go anywhere from 24, which is quite high if you ask me, or all the way down to 0. We wean people off of nicotine every day.
I smoked cigarettes for 42 years and I got to the point where I couldn't breathe.
10 months ago, George Mail gave up smoking for vaping. He says he's stopped coughing and can breathe again.
I don't know how safe it is, but I know what cigarettes did to me.
The federal government doesn't know how safe vaping is either. There's little scientific research. The Centers for Disease Control says the percentage of teens who use electronic cigarettes more than doubled from 2011 to 2012. One of them is 18-year-old Tristan Wiles.
My older brother did it, so I was just, tried it.
She says most of her friends vape, so she joins them without nicotine.
It's just the thing to do, I guess. It's relaxing, yeah, it's cool.
She likes the flavors. Buckeye Vapors has 200.
Strawberry banana smoothie, you can really taste the banana, but it's really good.
Employees can mix more to order.
We have some crazy flavors and they smell like the flavor.
But some are concerned that children will be interested in these flavors and get their hands on the small containers of nicotine.
These are interesting flavors to young children. Drink it down and they're drinking nicotine.
10TV was granted access inside the Central Ohio Poison Center, where Director Henry Spiller says since 2011, 22 local people have been poisoned by nicotine, 3 last month alone. Matter of fact, while we were here, they got another call.
Central Ohio Poison Center, Julie RN speaking. How may I help you? They do contain the nicotine. And so if he was just chewing on it, I think that We can watch him at home for now.
At a minimum, Spiller wants the nicotine to come in child-proof packaging because he says even a mouthful could cause seizures.
The parents are not going to know the risk that that small bottle held.
McBride is aware of the danger and urges customers to be careful.
We definitely need to keep outreach kids.
He won't sell to anyone under 18 and swipes IDs to check. Still, he's betting that the appeal of vaping will only increase and hopes 50,000 more people sign on to vaping this year.
I was intrigued, so I tried it myself, and I actually like it.
Ashley Berry, 10 TV News.
So that's a really great story just to kind of show what's going on in vaping bars and kind of what they're like. And they are like that when you go in there, you know, people can try them, and they have the novelty vape pens as well. And so it really is becoming a culture, and the market has exploded. It's becoming very popular. And I'm going to go into some of the things that they had brought up in that video as well. So you can choose your strength of the nicotine juice, and this is a term coined by Vapor for Life, which is a company that sells vapor cigarettes, or e-cigarettes. And this chart actually I pulled from their website because I think it really kind of shows the amount of nicotine and what it's equivalent to if you're thinking about conventional cigarettes. So the amount of nicotine does range from 0 to 36, 36 being a high dose of nicotine, 36 milligrams. And that would be for somebody who smokes full flavor cigarettes, consuming multiple packs per day. And so as you go down, it's gonna be less than that. And the first thing that when you walk into a vapor bar that they asked me was, you know, well, how much do you smoke? And I said, well, I really don't smoke because a lot of people are picking this up and they've never tried smoking before. And the individual that was working at that time kind of said, well, you know, you could do 0, but I wouldn't go past the 18. And she was really helpful. But when you look at the milligrams, they do vary because these products are not regulated and the manufacturers don't have any quality control standards or manufacturing standards. The nicotine levels do vary. They could be less, they could be more. With the 0 milligrams of nicotine, there's a lot of people out there that think because they have a 0 milligram of nicotine that they are not getting any nicotine. But recent studies have shown that there are traces of nicotine still in that juice, and so they are still becoming addicted to nicotine. I'm going to go into the effects of nicotine a little bit so we can kind of see how it works in our body and what it does to our body. Because it is a legal drug, you know, a lot of people kind of, I feel, just push it like it's not that bad. It's not that bad. But this video does a really great job of showing us what it does do to our body.
Cigarette smoke contains more than 4,000 different chemicals, with nicotine being the primary component. Nicotine is a naturally occurring colorless liquid that comes from the tobacco plant. It is considered an addictive drug, making cigarette smoking the most prevalent form of nicotine addiction in the United States. Cigarette smoking is a cause of many preventable diseases worldwide. The effect nicotine has on the brain and the body is complex. With each cigarette, a smoker takes in approximately 1 to 2 milligrams of nicotine. The smoker immediately experiences a high after exposure to nicotine due to the drug's stimulation of the adrenal glands and resulting secretion of epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. The rush of adrenaline stimulates the body and causes an increase in blood pressure, respiration, and heart rate. Nicotine also causes the release of dopamine in the brain. Dopamine is a chemical responsible for sensations of pleasure. The release of dopamine causes the smoker to experience a sense of euphoria following nicotine exposure, similar to other psychoactive drugs. The feelings of a high and of euphoria enhance nicotine's addictive effect. Repeated exposure to nicotine results in the development of tolerance, the condition in which higher doses of a drug are required to produce the same stimulating effects. When an adequate level of nicotine is not maintained, the smoker will experience symptoms of nicotine withdrawal. These symptoms include decreased heart rate, difficulty concentrating, nervousness, headaches, increased appetite and weight gain, insomnia, irritability, and depression. While these symptoms will diminish over time, the adverse effects of nicotine withdrawal make it difficult for most people to quit smoking. However, there are many resources and techniques available.
So from that video, you can see that when the nicotine, when somebody's using nicotine or products with nicotine, the need for nicotine increases like other drugs. In looking at this chart, and I think it said that in the video, when somebody smokes a conventional cigarette, so one cigarette, they're getting about 1 to 2 milligrams of nicotine. These products, if it's an 18 milligram labeled bottle of nicotine, are designed to give the user, 18 milligrams of nicotine when they're using them. When I went into the vape shops and in talking with people, a lot of people talk about, well, I'm using it for cessation, and I'm going to get into that a little bit, but I said, well, don't you think, though, that if you're using something that's labeled like an 18 milligram dose, maybe you're getting more nicotine, you're becoming more addicted, and you're like, well, I've never thought about that. So one of the concerns with these products is that, they might be more addicted than cigarettes, but it kind of depends on what they're using and how often they're using it. Recently, I was doing presentations at Aspirus to just talk with them about these products and about some of the things that are going on. And one of the things that we talked about was that the nicotine juice is toxic. So the bottle that I passed around, and if you notice, that one is not in a childproof bottle. None of them are. So they all come in, they just are very easy to open. But recently, a morbidity and mortality weekly report from the CDC came out that showed from 2012 to 2013 there was a 200% increase in the number of nicotine poisonings reported across the U.S. And recently we have had that happen here. When I was at Aspirus doing my presentation, one of the ED staff said, that's happened here. I was working, and somebody came in with a child, a toddler, that had been putting the bottle in and around their mouth and ingested some of the nicotine and was very, very sick. So this is happening, and it's becoming, it's increasing. So they're expecting this number to double over the course of this year. And as the products become more popular and more of that is around, that could be the reason for it. But we have a really great article if you want to pick it up outside on the table. And it's a doctor from the Fox Valley wrote it, and he talked about the bottle, about if it's a bottle labeled 20 milligrams of nicotine, that entire bottle contains up to 700 milligrams of nicotine. And 50 milligrams of nicotine is enough nicotine to poison or potentially kill an adult. And so in that bottle, there's up to 140 doses of that. I know it's a little bit of math, but I encourage you to pick it up. It was really interesting to me. So that stuff is very poisoning. And when I went into the store, one of the things they said to me is make sure that when you're filling this, so you fill it from the top, this mouthpiece comes off, make sure you get the mouthpiece on there correctly and that none of the juice is getting out or getting on your lips, because they know that it is toxic if ingested that way. One of the biggest arguments about this, and I think Dot will get a little bit more into it, is that, well, it's just water vapor. It's just water vapor that I'm taking in and that I'm exhaling. I have family members that use these, and we got into this recently at a family function because they were using it in the house, but people really do think that it is just water vapor in them and that they're healthier and that they're safer. But recently, a study came out from the University of California, San Francisco, their Center for Tobacco Control and Research. They found 10 chemicals that have been identified in e-cigarettes that are known carcinogens, and they were found in both the mainstream, so when somebody's inhaling the vapor, and the side stream, so that would be secondhand. So they found it in both of those, and because they're not regulated, there aren't any restrictions on the ingredients or the vapor emissions, so they could really put anything in them, and we really don't know, and they do vary from product to product. I'm going to keep going on. One of the things a lot of people ask is, well, can you use other things in them? So there have been reports of people using other drugs in these devices. And when I was at the store, I just asked them, like, do people use other things in here? And she goes, well, people that were just in here, they broke theirs because they were using marijuana in it. And there have been some news stories on this that it's been going on. And basically there are there's a liquid form of the THC that could be put in a vape pen, but also this wax, this dabbing, is something that's becoming a new trend. I know we talked about it a little bit last time, but I'm going to show a news story just to talk about this. If I can get it to work. Sorry. So while this loads, one of the things that we've talked about a lot as far as public health and other people, I know Dot went to the training, I actually didn't go, but our drugs are kind of going this liquid route, and they're becoming popular because, you know, they're odorless, and this is not working. They're odorless, they're undetectable. With their marijuana, you know, somebody using
neuroscience, and it just seems like games.
Sorry.
It's serious brain training.
VermontCity.com improves your brain's performance with the science of neuroplasticity. Start training now and discover what your brain can do.
And early on 7 News, we're trying.
So somebody using marijuana in something like this, it kind of makes it undetectable and it masks the odor, so people can use it out in public and people wouldn't know about it. So this story talks a little bit about it. It's very interesting.
A new marijuana product that gives you a high without the detectable smell. And we found that business is booming. Amanda Costa, always investigating, discovering the new pen poses a new challenge for law enforcement. It's an odor most of us can identify as soon as we smell it. Marijuana odors from smoke or buds like these are distinctive, musky, and sometimes overpowering. But now a new type of smokeless product, known as a vape pen, eliminates the smell of pot altogether. And these discreet devices could make it easier to get high in public undetected.
When marijuana first came on the scene, it was smoked different ways over time. So we have to be, try and stay with the trends that are going on.
Denver police tracking the vape pen trend. The concept similar to an e-cigarette, but instead of nicotine, users inhale cannabis or hash oil. And while Denver police aren't actively seeking out violators, they've spotted and cited vape pen users for consuming marijuana in public.
Obviously, it's less offensive to people, but it is still against the ordinance in the city county of Denver to consume it in public.
There's a convenience aspect of it.
Todd Mitchum oversees Vape Products. The company, based in Denver, is one of the largest producers of oil vaporizing pens. He says, while discreet, the product was not designed to be used in public.
Whether they can hide something or not, they just shouldn't be doing it. It's against the law.
We checked. So far in Denver this year, 80 citations have been issued for marijuana use in public, but those records don't show how the pot was consumed. Actually, detecting vape pen marijuana use without the smell isn't easy.
How can an officer tell if someone's actually smoking marijuana out of these?
It's not as offensive, so you may not be notified. You may not get the complaint that somebody says, hey, these guys are smoking marijuana, and that we may not get the complaint, so that we may not have to take action on that as easily or as quickly.
Meanwhile, the business of smokeless bud.
This year, we're already up by about 600%.
A growing trend, adding another element to the evolving state of marijuana in Colorado. Amanda Costa.
So as you can see, it's really becoming popular to use other substances in these. And when I was at one of the establishments just engaging and talking with some of the people, I said, well, do people ever use wax in here? And so marijuana wax is something that's becoming a trend, and it's like a waxy form that turns into a liquid. And she goes, well, yeah. And I was like, okay. And she goes, but what kind? So she kind of understood, like, why is this lady asking me all these questions? But it is happening in our area, and they are seeing it in the shops. And so it was really, really interesting. This is recently Whoopi Goldberg was hired by the Denver Post to write the cannabis blog, and she said the vape pen has changed my life. No, I'm not exaggerating. In fact, her name is Sippy. Yes, she's a she, and yes, I named her Sippy because I can take tiny little sips, sassy sips even, from her. And with each sip comes relief from pressure, pain, distress, and discomfort. So she's kind of talking about using marijuana in these devices. And I know that in our area too, we've seen teens figuring out how to use marijuana in them and using these devices in our schools as well. So this does raise probably a few questions for you. So are these a means of quitting or an entry point for new customers? Like I talked about before, they come in a lot of sweet flavors, and who likes sweet flavors more than kids? You know, who's attracted to bubble gum or Reese's peanut butter cup or chocolate or things like that. And what we know is that Big Tobacco's #1 target has always been youth, and they know it's their next source of money. And so e-cigarettes are using the same tactics for these, and they're flavoring them like they would the other tobacco products. They also are using glamorous marketing everywhere and anywhere. Because e-cigarettes are not regulated, they can be marketed in different ways than a conventional cigarette. So they can be on TV, they can be on big billboards, and I'm sure you've probably seen some of them. We do have some in our area. Magazine ads, online promotions, and then this is a picture from the Golden Globes, and they're using e-cigarettes there. So these advertisements dress up e-cigarettes as a better smelling, cheaper, guilt-free alternative to conventional smoking. Who are these products being marketed to? This is a billboard that was in the news, and it's in Florida. And it says, "I don't always vape, but when I do, I choose Vapo Shark." And it's Kris Kringle. And so I mean, there's probably some people in here that might still look up to Santa Claus, and that's okay. But you know, a lot of kids look up to him, and so it's important to point out here that, you know, in the state of Wisconsin, these products are illegal for minors to purchase or have, but there are still ways that they can get them, and they are still being marketed towards youth. And one of the interesting stories that I have is, you know, youth really do, there is a perception that they are healthier and that they are safer among a lot of people. And in youth, that is still rings true. One of our public health nurses, her daughter went through DARE, and so she's in 5th grade, and then right after DARE was at a friend's house, and the 11-year-old friend had an 18-year-old brother that was using these products, and the brother told his sibling that, you know, these are okay, they're safe, there's not nicotine in them, and the 11-year-olds were passing them around because they thought it was just water in there. And so there really is that misconception that they are safer. Just today, this news article came out, so I thought it was perfect timing to come out, and there was a study done and it's in the Journal of Pediatrics, and it talks about the explosion of youth exposure to cigarette and TV ads. So since 1971, ads for traditional cigarettes have been banned from TV. Congress removed the advertising from television because of the unique impact that it had on young people. So for e-cigarettes, 75% of these ads are seen by youth and then 18 to 24-year-olds. So they've been shown on country music television, Comedy Central, VH1, kind of all these places that you would expect young people to be watching TV. They also appeared on broadcast network programs that were among the 100 highest rated youth programs, so things like The Bachelor, Survivor, and so they can advertise these products on there, and about 24 million youth or young people, 12 to 18 and then 18 to 24, have seen these ads. And from a public health standpoint, without the regulation from the FDA and everything, we really are thinking that, you know, this could be promoting behaviors that we've worked really hard to combat. So, you know, a lot of young people, you talk to them about smoking, they know it's bad for them. But these things, you know, because they're being promoted everywhere and anywhere and they're seeing them, they really do think that they're okay. And so with the more prevalent ads being out there, it could increase the youth exposure and the youth trying them. One of the big questions I always get is, aren't they healthier than cigarettes? And we don't like to compare them to cigarettes. So we talk a lot about our smoke-free air law and this continuum of the smoke-free air law, conventional cigarettes, and then e-cigarettes. But some of the other arguments that we get about the health side is, well, I'm using them for cessation, I've switched, I'm using them instead of conventional cigarettes because I know they're healthier for me. But what we know is that they are not a regulated cessation device, so they've not been approved by the FDA for cessation. What we know works is an approved medication like a Nicorette gum or a patch, in addition to counseling. And so we talk to people about that quite a bit, and they also aren't being marketed as a way to quit. So if you look at these marketing, the middle one is why quit, switch to blue. they're really being marketed as a way to circumvent the smoke-free air law. So people can use them out in public, and because they're not covered in our smoke-free air law, that's kind of what's happening. We also don't know the health consequences of e-cigarettes. There are not a lot of studies yet coming out about the long-term effects of using e-cigarettes. You know, it took us about 20 to 30 years to directly link smoking a conventional cigarette to lung cancer or other diseases. And with e-cigarettes right now, we don't exactly know what kind of harm could they have on somebody. And after that, I'll hand it over to Dot, and she'll be able to answer any questions too.
Okay. Well, here we are 50 years later, after the Surgeon General's 50-year report came out, and we are reinventing the same process that cigarettes went through. I always tell young people when I'm addressing their groups that if you're in trouble, and usually it's something like our tip group or something where they have to come and learn about the product or pay a fine. And when I talk to that group, I say, if you're in trouble for using cigarettes or drugs or alcohol, think about the fact that it's usually because some adult somewhere is making money from it. And so we're right back into the same kind of rabbit, squirrel wheel, whatever you call those, gerbil wheel, that we went down before, because in the vacuum of no regulation, tobacco companies have now come out with new products, and they're marketing them like they did cigarettes, and they're using all of the time that they have now, between now and when we can regulate them, to really gain an advantage with both our young people and our smokers. And instead of giving up smoking, what we're finding is that it's really renormalizing smoking. And what I mean by that is that smokers switch to e-cigarettes when it's not convenient to smoke or it's prohibited to smoke. So at work or in a public place where they're now, where we now have the smoke-free air law ban, they pick up the e-cigarette and use it, and then when they can smoke, they go back to smoking. So it's not really a cessation device for most people, and it's renormalizing smoking because now it's cool again in a different fashion. So what do we do about it? Do we wring our hands? Is there anything that we can do about it? And in a few slides here, I'm going to show you that, that we do have some things that we can do about it. We're talking about the CDC goals here. They have 4 goals currently, and that's to prevent youth from starting to smoke. Wouldn't that be great? If we could prevent youth from starting to smoke, it eventually would just not happen. Eliminate exposure to secondhand smoke. If you're standing next to somebody vaping, you're breathing whatever they're blowing out. And as Destiny said, we have a sheet out there, I believe you said, there's a sheet out on the table that identifies some of those carcinogens and toxins that they have discovered. And one of the things I might not touch on later, so I'll say it here, is even the regulations that we're talking about implementing, proposing to implement, only regulate what goes in an e-cigarette. It doesn't regulate what comes out of an e-cigarette. And why is that important? Because just like a cigarette, an e-cigarette has a heating element. And some of the chemicals that are in the e-juice now, once they're heated, convert into something else. And some of those chemicals are the toxic chemicals or the carcinogenic chemicals. So what goes in does not always equal what comes out. And the other problem with vapor in a public setting is that they contain nanoparticles, which you can ingest into your lungs, deeper into your lungs than regular ambient air. So if there's carcinogens in it, it's going to deeply deposit into your lungs and cause some of the problems that we see. So promote quitting in youth and adults is another goal. And then identify and eliminate tobacco-related disparities among different population groups. We know that about 19% of adults continue to smoke, about 13% of young people. That still sounds high to me, but that's really half of what it used to be about 15 years ago. So we're real happy that it's down that far. But what we also know is that disparate groups or populations smoke more. So if 20%, let's just use a round number, if 20% of adults smoke, nearly half of those people have either mental health issues or are impoverished or come from a minority group. So we know that there's a disproportionate number of some of our populations who smoke, which means the rest of the population is really, it's down around 10%. So we do know that that we need to tune into certain groups to dissipate that. Okay, then the World Health Organization has some best practices, and you can remember this by Empower, and they suggest that you monitor tobacco use. And we do that by surveillance. We have a WINS program, and we take young people around to merchants and make sure they're not selling to underage kids. And we do some environmental scans and other things to stay on top of things. And then protect from smoke. We do have our Wisconsin smoke-free air law, and we join about half of the United States in having a smoke-free air law now, so that's catching on. The QUIT programs, and we have one here in Wisconsin, and warning about dangers of tobacco use. We have had the Former Smokers campaign, and maybe you've seen that, where someone is on TV and they talk about their experience, and they have a stoma, or they have a chest scar where they've had heart surgery, or they may be missing a leg due to disease. And then enforce bans on tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship. And advertising is a big problem because of what Destiny talked about. All of the laws that we have now for cigarettes do not apply to e-cigarettes and some of the other tobacco products. And then raising taxes on tobacco products, I believe she also mentioned. And e-cigarettes are not taxed beyond sales tax right now, so they're very inexpensive. The more inexpensive something is, the more attractive they are to anyone who smokes, but in particular our young people. So some of you may have seen the headline recently that says the FDA is proposing rules to regulate e-cigarettes. Well, what the FDA really proposes was deeming regulations, and I'm going to have you view a short video here that explains that.
Thank you for watching this short video about the FDA's deeming regulation. If you're watching this, you probably have a little bit of background knowledge regarding the FDA's regulation of tobacco products. But in case you don't, here's what you need to know. On June 22, 2009, President Obama signed the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act into law. This law is often referred to as the Tobacco Control Act, or today just the Act. This law grants the U.S. Food and Drug Administration the authority to regulate tobacco products. One of the powers given to the FDA is the authority to issue a deeming regulation. Let's talk about that power. To understand the deeming regulation, we have to start by talking about the tobacco products that the FDA can regulate, and we look to the definition of the term tobacco products. The Act provides a simple definition, which is easiest to understand if you break it into two parts. A product has to be made or derived from tobacco and intended for human consumption. So if you put these two pieces together, a product that starts as a tobacco plant where the end product can be consumed by a human is a tobacco product. As you may know, the FDA doesn't regulate e-cigarettes. That may seem strange because an e-cigarette would be captured by this definition because the tobacco in them is derived from, the nicotine in them is derived from tobacco, and inhalation is a form of consumption. There are other products that the FDA doesn't regulate in addition to e-cigarettes, and that's because of this language in the Tobacco Control Act. It's called the Applicability Clause, and it tells the FDA which products the Act applies to. Here's a Venn diagram of this information. The definition of the term tobacco products establishes the outer limit on the products that the FDA can regulate under the Act, represented by the large green square. The applicability clause gives the FDA specific directions on what products it has to regulate immediately, represented by the small red square that falls within the green square. As you can see, the FDA only regulates a specific subset of products. Now let's look at those specific products. There are 5 categories of products that the FDA regulates: cigarettes, cigarette tobacco, roll your own tobacco, smokeless tobacco, and a 5th category. This 5th category is what we're going to focus on. But before we do, let's move the other 4 categories over to the diagram. They're regulated by the FDA, so we'll move them to the red square. Now let's break down the 5th category. You'll notice that we're talking about other tobacco products, which means we're talking about products that meet the definition of tobacco products but aren't in the other 4 categories. The second part says that the Secretary, which means the FDA, has to act by regulation. This means that the FDA has to use its official rulemaking process. The third part tells us that the FDA can deem a product to be subject to this chapter. So that means that the FDA can make a decision that the Tobacco Control Act applies to another product. So if we put all 3 parts together, we can see that this category allows the FDA to subject any other product to the Tobacco Control Act as long as it falls within the definition of tobacco product and the FDA uses its official rulemaking process to do so. The use of the word deem in this section is where the term deeming regulation comes from. Now, let's talk about the mechanics of how deeming regulation works. If we expand the diagram so that the whole screen represents the definition of tobacco products, and we keep all of the FDA-regulated products on the left, and reorganize the categories, let's bring back the deeming language and look at what happens when the FDA issues a deeming regulation. You can visualize this process one of 2 ways. One way to think about it is that the deeming language creates an empty category within the FDA's regulation where the FDA can bring in new products. It looks like this, an empty box. Here are some examples of unregulated products. When the FDA issues a deeming regulation, what it's doing is taking all of the unregulated products and putting them into its empty box and subjecting them to the Tobacco Control Act. The second way to visualize the deeming regulation is like this. If the FDA issues a deeming regulation and subjects all tobacco products to the Tobacco Control Act, it's expanding its regulation so that it encompasses all the products that are not in the original 4 categories of regulation. And that's how the deeming regulation works. Thanks for watching, and for more information on what happens once the deeming regulation is in place, check out the rest of this series. And for other information on the FDA's regulation of tobacco products, check out the consortium's FDA Tobacco Action Center by visiting www.publichealthlawcenter.org and clicking on FDA Tobacco Action Center.
Okay, how do I get out of there? So you can see that you can hear what he described as what is a deeming regulation, and that's one part. And then we have to take a look at how is it developed. And so that brings us right back to this. How do you get the words off? Okay, I should have you do that. Okay, you can see that it's really quite a process to get the deeming regulation process is quite a process. You should know that I'm not going to go into detail so you don't have to go to sleep here, but the deeming process, it involves a lot of time, and that's significant for us. First of all, it has to go through what is called an OIRA review of the deeming proposal. And that means it bounces back to the White House, and they have a department there that looks at all of the regulations that are proposed for law, just to make sure that they agree with them and that it's written well and all of those kinds of things. Then they publish the proposed rule, and then there's a comment period. And the comment period can last, in this case, it's going to last all summer. So we'll have comments until fall. And then the FDA reviews the comments and they consider everyone's input, which is why we can do something about this, because we can say what we want to have them cover in this deeming regulation. But there is no deadline after the comment period and FDA reviews it. There's no deadline set for this. And so it can stretch out for a very long time and sometimes has even stretched out for years. And we can only imagine why. It's hung up over a variety of reasons, and some of which is maybe they don't have the votes to pass it, a lot of other things. Then when they finally review all of the comments, it goes back to the White House office where they review the final rule, and there's no deadline for that either. So you can see where sometimes things are proposed and they just languish for years. And then the final rule is published. It's printed in the Federal Register, and so it becomes something that can be enforced. However, it goes back here and can be possibly litigated by anyone. So what that means, oops, that was a smart board, huh? Yeah. So what that means is that the tobacco companies can take this to court and say, no, this is unfair to our business, or whatever their argument might be, and they can hold it up also. And that did happen to us. If you can remember back a couple of years, 2011, we tried to get the graphic warning labels on cigarette packages, and that went through this whole process. And then it was litigated, and then it was thrown out. So we never did get that to happen. And then the implementation of the final rule, and because deeming regulations are very broad and very sweeping, they usually give them a year or two before they start enforcing them. So I'm saying that because this is truly the process that any of those federal regulations go through. And what that means for us is that it can take quite a long time. Probably, in this case, probably take more than a year and possibly two if litigation doesn't happen. So, and the reason that's important is because all the time it takes to get a deeming regulation enacted and enforced, e-cigarette companies are out there spreading the message in ways that they can't spread the message in conventional cigarettes. And so that's a problem for us. We want to I'm going to go on here, I think. What we want to do is make people aware of what this process is, and then be able to have our people comment on it. Because the deeming regulations, even after, if they would become enacted, even after they are enacted, wouldn't go quite far enough to prevent some of the things that we were talking about this morning. And the American Heart Association responded with a press release once the deeming regulation was published. It says, our nation's youth must be given a fighting chance to turn away from tobacco and nicotine addiction once and for all. In order to achieve that goal, the FDA must go beyond the regulations proposed today and stop the advertising, restrict the flavorings, and include flavored cigars, which have replaced banned flavored cigarettes as a gateway for youth, and control the internet sales, which can often be used to circumvent youth access restrictions. So even after these rules are enacted, it won't cover some things that we find in the goals of the Centers for Disease Control. The very things that we know can prevent youth from taking up this habit. We have a Clean Indoor Air Act already, and in Wisconsin we know that 3/4 of the voters supported Wisconsin's current smoke-free air law. That means that in public places people do appreciate clean air. And as Destiny said, there's a continuum: clean air over here, conventional cigarettes over here, e-cigarettes somewhere in the middle. And once we do more testing, we'll know where on that continuum they fit. But if 3/4 of people wanted clean air, we still want to advocate for clean air and not vapor. So that's one more way that we can talk about something that we can do. We can propose local ordinances if we'd like to add e-cigarettes to our already existing clean air policies. That's not something that would be covered in the FDA regulation. And certainly if you have youth in schools, you can add the e-cigarette policy to the school policy. Even though it says tobacco products, and even by the definition that we just heard, e-cigarettes could fit into that. It's often better if you identify and e-cigarettes also, because in schools now they're having problems with kids bringing the device, and should they be able to bring the device if they don't have the liquid, and all of those kinds of things. So just banning them all together is probably a wise idea. And then also in businesses where we have fought for years to have clean air for employees, once again, allowing vaping doesn't allow them to have clean air. So we want to think about those things. So, as we talked about, add e-cigarettes to local tobacco policy, and then we can comment on the proposed deeming regulations. You can go to www.regulations.gov and add your comments, and then of course do the education as we're doing today. You can have us come, or you can tell other people what you've heard and get the word out, because we're really up against a $1 billion industry. Tobacco or e-cigarettes are now being traded on the stock market, and they're a multiple $1 billion industry, so they're not going to go away soon. And there are some pretty heavy hitters behind making sure that e-cigarettes are available in whatever location you want them to be. And you can see on the little inset there, that is Buffalo Wild Wings, if you can't see that from way back there. But they have put on their door, no smoking or e-cigarettes, please. And that's the kind of effort that we're going to have to see in order to overcome some of the popular things that people think they know about e-cigarettes. It's not a cessation device, it's not healthy, and water vapor contains more than just water vapor. So, or the e-cigarette vapor contains more than water vapor. So, hopefully, if you wanted to write that address down, you could write in, or you could go to the AODA website, and they'll have that eventually. And we also have it on our website, and we'll put that up. Okay, thank you.
This presentation will be posted on the AOD site. We are running short of time. Is there any specific questions that you'd like to ask the ladies while they're here?
I forgot to mention that Channel 9 and Channel 7 would like someone to come out to my home and be able to interview them on my property the day of the warming stuff. And WDEZ said they would like to help. I asked if they could possibly bring their vehicle out, but they didn't know that they would like to help as well. Jerry Petrowski is our state senator. He's also a friend of the family, and he has expressed interest also in helping. But yes, Channel 9 and 7 both said if you could have a spokesperson come out, they would like to be able to interview and talk about what your process is.
Well, and you and I can talk about that afterwards. Is there anything related to our topic here today that you have questions about?
Quick question, I think. I was in a prominent grocery store here in the West community, and I was smoking one of these things in the aisle. Whose job was it to go up to them and say, don't do that?
It's the business has to
So it was my job to go up to the manager and say, you're needed in aisle 9.
This makes me uncomfortable. Absolutely, you could tell the manager that, and the managers will say something.
E-cigarettes are legal. They are legal to use in any public place right now.
So I could light one up right here.
You could light one up right here.
Even though there's no smoking property.
I don't remember if the county, I don't know if the county changed the policy yet.
The county hasn't changed the policy yet, and that's what it is going to take, is that local policies are going to have to add e-cigarettes in order to make sure that e-cigarettes are not being able to be used. But it's possible. I'm sure that they probably wouldn't want that, but until they add that to their policy, it's still
come up with something else.
Yeah.
Then,
yeah.
It's like kids who say, I didn't say the F word, I said the F-U-C-P word.
Right.
Do we know how the police department is handling with youth under the age of 18?
It's kind of all over the board how they're handling that. because people don't know whether it's legal for kids to have the paraphernalia, or is it just the e-juice that they can't have?
So if they're in possession of e-juice or an e-cigarette that has the juice inside of it already.
That's why we're encouraging schools to put very specifically no tobacco policy, including e-cigarettes, because it can be or it doesn't have to be included, and that's the confusion that's out there right now.
But even if we have that in the school district policy, which we're looking at changing in the Wausau School District, when we have tobacco, we turn it over to the police department and kids end up with a citation out of it.
And that would be the same.
But they won't cite based on our policy. They won't cite based on.
It's illegal for people under the age of 18 to have the e-cigarette stuff.
So even an e-cigarette without the juice, if they just have.
Well, that's
Turn it over to them and let them figure it out.
That's the confusing part. It is illegal for them to have the juice, whether they have the paraphernalia. I think it's up to the police officer's discretion. And we have had people. I guess this is a Portage County example, but there was a principal who allowed a young person to have their e-cigarette because he claimed it was a cessation device. And so that fell into some kind of policy that they had. But once he figured out what was what, he backed off on that. But that's the level of confusion. So you do want to try to put together a good policy.
There are extra copies of the handouts that were in front of you, so if you want extra copies, there are out there in addition to some of the ones that Destiny had mentioned, and we will upload this and the PowerPoint if it's all right with them. We'll upload everything to the site by the end of the week.